To sell or to ride the wheels off the thing? That's the question today, and with that, welcome back to the Free Miles MC. We're doing today the 10,000 kilometer review on the Royal Enfield Interceptor that I bought half a year ago. So, what have I done in those 10,000 kilometers? I took the bike touring on a big motorcycle surf trip to every nice surf beach between here and Lisbon. It was really nice, and the bike held up really well and was great for adventure touring for the time. And I bought the bike for 4.5 grand and also used it in day-to-day riding, commuting to work, and also then after that mainly as a weekend bike, as I owned this bike over the winter, and the Chrome didn't like the bad cold weather that much, so I mostly took it out on good weather Sundays. So my initial impression of the bike was very positive. The frame of this bike handles amazing. It's so great in the curves for a near retro bike. Basically handles everything that you throw at it. The engine feels amazing. It has exactly enough grunt with its 48 horsepower and slightly above 50 Newton meters of torque. The only complaint from the initial impression was that the stock tires were pretty bad. But now with 10,000 kilometers on the clock, I rode the bike on Michelin tires, which was very great. Like on rails, the bike handled amazing with those. And now on Heidenau K60 Scout, which also goes quite well, even though they have a bit of a different ratio. The other question that arises when driving this bike for over 10,000 kilometers, does the power of the bike get boring? As the bike is basically exactly at the A2 limit. And I have to say, for this style of bike with the neo retro styling, I would say the bike has the perfect amount of power for the street, because it is exactly as much power as you need, and with it not having that much power, it basically just feels like a basic motorbike. It's so nice, as I sometimes also review bigger bikes on the channel, and also smaller ones. It's so nice to always come back to this middle ground of motorbike that's like not too powerful, but also powerful enough. Like, you definitely can keep up with everything while like not being scared to twist the wrist on the bike. This impression also kept up over the time of ownership, and all in all, the riding feeling is just beautiful. As the longer you ride this bike, the more you realize how well it carries its weight. This bike weighs around 220 kilos and is quite top heavy, but it feels so light and nimble, like you're just zapping around roundabouts, going through traffic. And also, the bike allows for quite a bit of off-roading, even though this is a street bike, kind of also because of how it carries its weight. If you stand on the bike, you can really well like balance it out. How the bike kicks up if it goes over like tree rods and everything is really good, and it can handle itself quite well there. The ABS is not off-switchable, but it's pretty easy to pull the ABS fuse with no electric hiccups and to pull it back in. So I would say that's close enough. This is also why you see the bike currently in its scrambler costume, basically, as the bike is very easy to customize, and if you own this bike, you basically catch yourself constantly scrolling on the internet for customization parts, as you can customize this bike visually very nicely for very little money. You have scrambler kits for 1.5 grand that completely transform the bike. You have upswept exhausts. You have motorcycle surf racks. I bought the motorcycle surf rack, which allowed the motorcycle surf trip, and now when I plan on taking this bike a bit more off-road, I now have a little bit of scrambler dress up, which is nice. This bike also has quite a lot of customization options when it comes to performance. A simple ECU tune on this bike can do a lot, and also there are like 850cc bore kits, which are probably not legal in my home country, but I'm curious if I maybe try that out one day, because I'm really interested in stuff like this for this particular machine. This bike being very easy to individualize, you feel so cool on the bike. You really feel like Steve McQueen when sitting on this motorbike, and also people perceive you as quite a cool guy. It sounds so vain, and especially if you're like in your 20s and riding this bike in a big city, from to work, back to work, and around your social circle with like the long hair flowing and everything. Amazing. It's an amazing experience. The only thing that's there to complain that will arise when you ride this bike for a longer time is you don't have this typical big motorcycle hair on your chest manliness feeling. That's kind of being lost. Because like I'm quite a tall dude. I'm around 6'5" and 196 centimeters, and the problem with that is usually if I sit on bikes, of course they don't fit that well. This one fits, that's all good, but usually you have this feeling of big dude on big motorcycle most of the time, or big dude on semi-okay motorbike. With this, you start to feel weird. You start to feel like this doesn't match. And you also start to feel like you look like that. This feeling doesn't come up on the initial ride. It slowly creeps in. And the longer you ride it, the stronger it gets. And when you then see another dude on the bike who's similar in size, you see, well, this does not match. And that's a weird feeling. But all in all, the day-to-day riding is so good and so fun. You basically want to ride this bike as much as you can. And here comes a problem. You cannot ride this bike as much as you can. You would really love to park this bike outside of your apartment and just go to work with it and everything and just cover it up overnight or something. If you don't own a garage, or your garage is not exactly at your apartment, you're out of luck. And with the price point of this bike, that's basically the demographic that this bike is aimed for. This bike is not aimed for people who can afford a garage next to their apartment. And that is because the bike suffers from coercion quite a lot. The opinion on the internet is that this bike is super amazing, without fault, and just absolutely the reincarnation of Christ. I have to disagree. It is a really great bike, but the materials on this bike are a bit lacking when you live in the middle of Europe, where we also have winter, salt on the road sometimes. I didn't put this bike through any salt on the road, but I took it on a motorcycle surf trip, so nah. It leads to issues like the chrome suffering quite a lot and starting to look weird. You constantly have to polish it. And also the bike starts to rust. A lot of flying rust that you constantly have to take off on all chrome parts. Also, the bike especially suffers from rust in the rear exhaust, as the exhaust is slightly tilted. So if you go camping with this bike, you will have rain running into your exhaust and destroying the exhaust in the span of like a month. This is actually something that should be a warranty case, but you need to see if your Royal Enfield dealership that's local will actually cover that, as mine didn't, and it was a $150 situation. Also, the paint and finish on the bike starts to suffer over time. The bike tends to develop scratches, also doesn't like sun that much. That's all stuff you can still polish out. Basically everything that I'm mentioning can be slowed down with a lot of care. But the problems start to arise when you see that the bike also is lacking paint in some areas where you don't see it. For example, there are holes in the parts of the bike where you can put screws in, which is nice, as you can easily put on parts and everything. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You see here how the rust is developing in those spare holes that the bike has. There are no screws that are already put in to prevent this from happening. I own two Yamahas from the 90s before. They had those holes too for putting extra screws in for stuff, and they had like little plastic plugs you put in, which prevented that issue. And this is rust that you basically cannot get rid of with all the outer sole in the world. It's a similar issue at the little edge on the exhaust, which with outer sole and like a shoelace cannot even be defeated. You of course can fight these things with very good care, and it helps slowing down this a lot. And you can have this bike looking like almost brand new for a long time. Only problem is you will not be exactly able to catch up on these things in the very minor details, and this will add up over time. My prediction is that this bike will age quicker than other bikes. When other bikes are like 5 to 6, 7 years old, they will look 5 to 6, 7 years old, which in many cases looks brand new. This bike, in my prediction, will look 15 years old at that point. I just don't think that the bike will hold up over that long period as well as other bikes that I had did. Which is a shame, because it brings you into this conundrum of you either sell the bike or you ride the wheels off the thing, because you cannot like occasionally take it out on weekends and just enjoy it. I mean, if you really only drive it to the ice cream shop, get ice cream and then polish the bike for a whole afternoon while rhythmically massaging your pants because you like this bike so much, then yes. But apart from that, that's not happening. This bike will not age as gracefully as you might think. This also is in other departments, like everything that's rubber on the bike is close to biodegradable. Like, it's out of some special caoutchouc, which basically is factory setting half broken. Of course, those rubber parts are supposed to protect certain parts, which of course they then don't. And if then like a small rock flies onto them, they can easily break. Something like the rubber protection right on the shifting lever. When I got pulled over by the police here in Germany, they almost shut down my bike because of this, which is not really a Royal Enfield issue, but more of a German police issue. So yeah. Also, other parts suffer strongly from this. For example, the rear view mirrors will collect rust in the lower bottom corner. The instruments will collect water inside them, even if you protect the bike from rain. And also the fuel sensor that's basically a minor complaint, but the fuel sensor on the bike isn't that great. It's in the side of the tank, so when the bike is on the side stand, it shows that your tank is full. Then you start driving. It takes some time for the thing to adjust, roughly past the last gas station outside of your hometown, and then it shows you, bam, close to running out of fuel. That's really annoying. Well, it's not really annoying if you just use the kilometer counter instead. All in all, I have to say the bike is still pretty great. Of course, I now mentioned also the downsides with materials and everything, but I just made this a bit of a bigger part, as basically no one else is mentioning that. But the bike is still pretty great value for money. If I consider that I bought this bike for 4.5 grand, it would still be good value if I bought it for like 5.5 or 6 grand, which is also what these bikes used to go for. There's a new version of the Interceptor that also has blacked out chrome parts, which should stop the whole like rusting issue on the exposed chrome parts. So that's good, but then the bike starts to cost 7.5 to sometimes with some extras even 8 grand. And also because like now the parts are then blacked out, but I don't know if then the paint quality is better. And also if the paint is like at all the little hidden spots. And I would gladly pay 500 bucks more for the chrome to be clear coated and for the paint to be properly at all the spots really well. But 7.5 to 8 grand, no, that's a bit much. I'm very happy with the price I paid for this, and I could now sell it for more than I paid for. But I want to keep the bike as it's fuel injected, and it's pretty hard to get a similar package for the price I initially bought the bike for. So, and also with my very unique situation of being into motorbike traveling and the new Himalayan 450 being out, and me not wanting to buy that bike as the bike has the first liquid cooled engine in Royal Enfield history, and also it's a completely new model, and general motorbike car advice, never buy anything that's like completely new. That's why I'm going to keep this bike. Also because I had the conversation with a work colleague if we ever would do a motorcycle world tour, what bike would we take for that? And out on a limb, for some stupid reason, I said Interceptor 650, so I now kind of have to stick with this. Also, this was kind of one of my dream bikes when I started riding, so I'm all in all still like super happy with it. I just realized I need to ride the bike now. I need to ride it now and a lot, because this bike will probably not be in this condition in 15 years if I really look, if I just like protect it all the time and only do like very careful stuff with it. So I'm going to properly ride the bike from now on. So what is something that I would tell people if they want to look into this bike? I would say still go for it. It's a really nice bike. Just be aware of these things, and if you're a beginner rider who wants like a first bike, go for it. This is really cool. You can do a lot of things to it. You can learn how to look after a bike, because if this thing becomes slightly rusty, it's not as big of a deal if that happens with a very chromed out Harley later in your life, and you then already have the skills to fight those little demons. And also you will have a lot of fun, and it's a real showstopper. So for younger guys who want to really get into riding, really good bike, even with the smaller complaints. And I'm actually a huge fan of the bike and huge fan of Royal Enfield. I now talked a lot of shit, but I still would be very happy if they would like sponsor me one day, which is out of the question probably after this video, but yeah. Also, if you are an older guy who really likes bikes from back in the day and really likes looking at your bike and wants to take it out occasionally to a coffee shop or something, you are very well served with this bike, as well as you already have the skills to fight the issues that this bike has with its chrome and everything, and probably have the money for a garage. So it's all in all, for those two kinds of riders, really great. If you expect the bike as a neo-retro bike to hold up very long and you buy bikes for the aesthetic and for long keeping them, of course this is nice, but maybe then consider something else. So that's my opinion on how this bike hold up over 10,000 kilometers. We will see how this bike hold up after 30,000 kilometers next, because I'm basically done with all the review stuff until then. And if you want to see how I put this bike properly through the paces, also over some gravel road, and take it touring to countries far and beyond, then consider subscribing.